Hi everyone, welcome to this video. What we're going to be doing today is a bit of a painting guide for the plastic foot sergeants from Wargames Atlantic. These are part of their Age of Chivalry range, and I'll be painting these to fit in with my Barons War collection. I have got another video where I look at what's in the box, I assemble them, and I see how you can kit bash between the kits. So if you're interested in that, please check it out. They are very versatile kits, and I will say you get a lot of spares. So what I've done is I've picked five of these models, and these really are just my favourite sculpts from the box. I've tried to pick out a bit of variety. So we've got the two-handed weapon option here, which is not available in metal in the futsal range. So if you want two-handed sergeants, you'll either have to go and find an alternative manufacturer or use these plastic sets. We've got a foot sergeant with a sword. We've got like this commander sort of figure here. We've got a bill, and then we've got a crossbowman. So a bit of a variety of weapons. And I've started this off by spray painting these with Hyrax Brown from Colourforge. And as I mentioned in one of these other videos, I'm really enjoying using these undercoats. They're very good. But I've gone for this dark brown so that I can start off with some dry brushes to sort of like try and, pick out the highlights on the fabrics here. So, mainly around their this padded armour, their trousers, their boots, just to save me a little bit of time. As with the other videos, I'll do a bit, come back, and show you how I've been getting on. And hopefully this is useful for someone. So as we did when we painted the levy, I've gone in with the dry brush. Again, the intention is to pick out the raised areas, mainly on things like the gambesons and on the legs. Some of these areas of cloth will stay brown, but because these guys are sort of like sergeants, are slightly better equipped, the majority of things, unless it's a gambeson, will be painted. So I started with the chocolate brown, which virtually did nothing, so it was pretty much the same with the flat earth. You could probably discount both of those colours and just go straight for the leather brown, which does give a nice highlight. What we'll do now is some sort of like blocking in some base colours. So we'll block in the silver for the weapons. I normally use Vallejo oily steel and a little bit of black into that, mainly to give it quite a dark metallic tone. We'll then go around and we'll start picking out some of the colours on these guys. So we'll pick out flesh, a base coat of mahogany brown for the flesh. It's my sort of like basic starting point. Any of the lighter areas that we want to do, fabric, Iraqi sand. We can use bronze flesh tone for anything which is going to have a yellow tinge to it. Anything that's red or reddish brown, we can either use red or cavalry brown. They're both very nice colours. They work together to make a nice brown. And anything with a green hint, we've got the heavy green and the heavy grey. What I will do on this commander guy is I will give him a bit more of a sort of like heraldic colour scheme to sort of like indicate that he's a leader. He could be sort of like a mercenary captain or a sergeant commander. So he'll get a bit more of a fancy colour choice, which I've not decided what I'll do yet. But things like the straps here, they're now virtually done. So I'll very carefully paint around those. We can go back and touch them up if we need to. I'll go ahead and do those next bits, and we'll come back and I'll show you how they're looking once I've blocked in some of the colours. So as you can see, I've blocked in the base colours on each of these guys. It's just a very quick job, blocking them in. Try being as neat as you can, but there's no worries if you do get any paint where it shouldn't be, because we're going to tidy up more in the next phase. So you can see I've gone for some greens, I've gone for some sort of like reddish browns. I've left the straps and the shoes untouched because they're already a decent colour. This guy, his gambeson, where it's a padded gambeson, I've just kind of left that the colour of the dry brush. Gone in detail, you can see on the bag of bolts, his crossbow, added the metallics, added facial hair colour, and did the skin. This guy again as well is Anderson's padded, so I've kind of just left that. We'll pick out some more extreme highlights in the next phase. We're really just using the same sort of colour palette throughout, and then just, except this guy obviously he's got blue, same colour palette throughout, and just alternating what bits of clothing you paint it with. So next step is to give them all a wash of Army Painter Strong Tone. Thin that down quite considerably so that it's not going to darken the miniatures too much. I think, as I said with my knights, I'll probably add a little bit of red tone for the guy in yellow, just to try and the hue to the yellow, quite warm, as it works quite well together. So what we'll do is we'll go away and I'll wash these, then I'll come back and show you how they look, then we'll move on to the detailing stage. You can see the difference that the wash is making. It gets into those recesses, especially on the back here. It's made those more defined, the marks on the, I guess they're meant to be the stitched lines, aren't they? Certainly on this guy, you do have to be careful, certainly on cloth like this, you don't get a big pool at the bottom. So I put the wash on, and then as it's drying, I sort of like come along and just dab off that bit that pools, because although it looks good in the recess, if it's on a big flat area, it can look a bit naff. You can see on here, on this guy, on his gambeson there, the difference that the wash makes. It just gets into the crevices and looks quite nice. It also sort of like dulls the brightness of some of the colours as well, which is a good starting point for the next step, which will be coming around and highlighting these. So as I always do, I'll start off with the base colour again to highlight, and then I'll add bits and pieces. So for the green, I'll add some sort of like tan, brown. For the red areas, I add sort of like a bit more red. These ones haven't got any white, so that's quite easy. There's no need to worry about the white. The helmets, I'll give them a sort of like an edge highlight of silver. Same with the metal for the weapons, and the blade for the axe, just to give it a little bit more luster to it, to make it look sharp. What I'll do is start some of the highlights, and I'll come back halfway through to show you exactly how they're looking and what difference they're making. So here are the first 5 finished foot sergeants. And again, you'll be able to see that there's quite a difference between these models and what you saw in the last stage, and that's because these have been fully highlighted. So for a couple of these guys, that didn't involve a lot of effort, and that's these two. That's because I dry brushed over them, so it meant that actually the gambeson on this was pretty much virtually painted. What I did is I went back and I just highlighted a little bit with a little bit of I think it's Vallejo leather brown with a little bit of Iraqi sand mixed in. And I did the same for this guy as well. So essentially just went and highlighted his gambeson and picked out some of the details. For the other guys, they got the same sort of treatment as the other models have had. The guy wearing the green here, I went back over with the heavy green and added a little bit of Iraqi sand. I'd say it's probably about sort of 75% green, 25% beige, and then add a little bit of beige if you need to lighten the colour up. The blue treated ever so slightly different in that it started off with the Imperial blue from Game Colour, but then I added in a small amount of this ultramarine blue, and then a final extreme highlight where it was required, so sort of on the folds on his back here, I added a little bit of off-white just to sort of like bring it up another level. I try sometimes not to go too extreme on the highlights because it starts to look a little bit cartoony. The shields, I've done a separate video on painting shields, but these were the final part. But again, when I batch paint, I go through and I paint everything that's going to be one colour. So, for example, the red shoes, the trousers being worn, any of these hoods, save some time by just painting everything that's going to be that colour at once. It's manageable when you're doing batches of 5. When you're doing bigger batches, it starts to get a bit tedious. But I find 5, 6 is probably an ideal batch size. The final things that all of the models handle is just highlights of silver, picking out any details, finishing off any of the wood, straps, and that sort of thing. And they're done. So here they are, finished and ready to go onto the tabletop. So since the last video, I've finished off the basing and some weathering here and there where it's needed. So these guys, it's a little bit easier than the knights. I base them following my normal method. I've got some weathering on the shields, which is done in a very similar way. So it's for this guy in the yellow, it's a dark black splodges around the bottom of his coat. I haven't gone too heavy on these ones really because I didn't want them to look too dirty. In fact, I didn't put any weathering on this guy at all. On some of them, they've got sort of like lighter weathering. That's Iraqi sand, sorry. Just on the shield to try and make it look like they're a bit more banged up. But overall, it's a really nice set. They've come out well. These ones here are a bit of a mix, like I've said previously, between the knights and the foot sergeants. So these are knights' arms. I believe some of the other bits and pieces we've got in here as well are from the levy set, like these legs. I think they're from the levy set. But they've come out really nicely, and I'm enjoying the poses and I'm enjoying painting them. And they've actually been quite straightforward, which is great, because if you're batch painting, the last thing you want is overly complicated miniatures. So really happy with these. Need to get on with the next batch now. I want to get some more of the slingers done so I can try those out in game. So hopefully this has been useful for people. I will be doing a separate video on how to paint the shields so that people can see my method for painting shields. So that might be useful. If it is, please check that out. If not, and you've got other sets of these Wargames Atlantic miniatures, I've done painting tutorials for the others. So please keep an eye out for those, and if you like, check them out, subscribe, and all that sort of thing. So thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for some new videos. Cheers.